Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 61, the week of October 5th, 2024. My name's Drew Koenig. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mads Sassy. Mads, how are we doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing.
Do it.
I mean, I am alive.
True.
No, it was a very long work week. I'm working on a project where the customer is being very non-forthcoming with information, and I need information to do my part of the job, and it's very frustrating. And so I'm the kind of person that looks ahead too. So it's like, okay, sure, this is getting pushed back a couple days because of the customer, but what about my other work that was supposed to be on these days that you're pushing this back to? And it's like stress spiral.
Right.
So that's been my week.
I have been on vacation all week, and this is my last day before I go back to work.
Yeah.
Day for me. Yeah. And my birthday was yesterday, so that was fun.
Well, happy birthday. I'm a bad friend. I didn't wish you happy birthday on your actual birthday.
No, that's fine. It's fine. Thank you to everyone who actually did wish me a happy birthday yesterday. It was fun though. It was.
Did you do anything exciting?
No. I feel like you reach a certain age where you're just like, the birthday was a day that happened to me, and not like, not like when you're younger and you're like, oh, this is a day, this is I get out
Right.
and do things. It's just I'm not the age I once was, and now
I'm not one of those people that takes my birthday off from work if my birthday falls on a weekday. And so I have people that are like, why don't you take your birthday off? And I'm like, why? So I can sit at home and then become farther behind at work? No thanks. I'm good.
I mean, I did take my vacation on my birthday week, so.
Oh yeah, he did. My
But I
good friend
think
Rob does that. He'll take the whole week off for his birthday.
right. But I think in my case, that's more a thing of like, I need to take this second week off eventually, and I'm not going anywhere, so I might as well do it on my birthday.
Meanwhile, I can't really take any time off right now because we are about to go on a very big trip in, according to our calculator for Disney, 46 days. We're going to Disney World with a 7-year-old.
I'm sure that will be lots of fun.
I think it will be. We're selfishly going to Hollywood Studios for me so I can see Star Wars stuff. I mean, she also loves Toy Story, so it benefits her too, but I said to Karen, I was like, if we're going to Disney, I need to see Star Wars. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I haven't been to Disney since I was 13, so we'll see if it lives up to my memories.
I mean, it is always a fun time, even if it is exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, we also did a reservation at the only place you can meet Stitch, which is a restaurant. So I will get to meet Stitch, which I was not able to do when I was 12 or 13 because he was not in existence at the parks at that time. So, so don't be surprised if I post pictures with Stitch.
Let's move on to some news. It was kind of it was a weird news week in terms of the discourse. But I think this is the big news item of the week that relates to TV. A couple of reports that are kind of the same report. The first part of this is that essentially studios are terrified of pissing off fandoms now. Both these stories kind of relate to the same thing, which is how do you interact with a fandom? And the second news story of this is I think probably more specifically pertains to this of studios are now assembling focus groups of quote unquote super fans to kind of evaluate these franchises on a marketing level and assist studios in tweaking these properties, which I'm sure that a lot of people in fandoms are gratified to hear that. But to me, as someone who has always been at best fandom ambivalent, feels bleak as hell.
Yeah, I'm also looking at it from a standpoint of I follow a lot of accounts that are Star Wars related on social media just because I love the content. And I see it from a standpoint of, okay, for example, the super fans of Star Wars are horrible, horrible reads of the fandom as a whole, which is why, like, in the case of like the Acolyte, for example, like the super fans review bombed it so bad that it got canceled. So, like, are super fans really the best indicator of a television show?
And I think like the initial reaction from like a lot of fandoms were like, oh good, we'll finally have a say in the practice of this. People will listen to our voices now because they're trying to listen to the voices. I hate to ruin anyone's fun here, but that is not going to happen. What's going to happen
Nope.
is they're going to listen to the 6 asshole YouTubers that already get listened to.
Yeah.
The people that are going to be listened to are people like Star Wars Theory and Star Wars Girl, who have done everything they can to make online space as unbearable as they could. Those are the people that are going to affect things going forward. It's not going to be you. It's just not. I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
accurately tell you this. And I think the thing that like really combines these two stories of like we're creating a focus group and fandoms have toxified to a point that studios are actively afraid of them. The thing that connects these two is that these are male voices primarily doing that.
Right.
It is the more male voices making it a toxic place, and the male voices are the ones that are going to be listened to. And I think, like I said, there's a kind of inclination to being like, oh, I'm going to be listened to. But it's all like I think the only benefit that has is like the place that mindset comes from is I am going to be listened to. The idea of other people being listened to is horrific. What you want is
Mm-hmm.
you to be listened to, which is not the way that's going to happen. And if you've listened to the opinions of other people, like every fandom that I've ever seen gets to a point of those people are fucking idiots, and I don't want to listen to them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is all bad. This is all deeply bad.
Yeah, I've been in fandom spaces for many, many years, and over time, I've seen each of them implode in some way because of the loud minority, right? The most interesting one I think that I've ever been in was the Our Flag fandom, and that was built up really fast and then imploded just as quickly. And I was like, this is insanity. But that is social media for you. And it's also realizing that the creators of the show that of shows that choose to interact on social media only listen to those that are constantly talking about it and are very loud about it, and that's not good for everybody.
Right.
So I don't know why people think this is necessarily a good thing.
And and again, I say this as someone who has only ever been like fandom adjacent. You know,
Hmm.
I don't think that I've ever considered myself part of any fandom. Honestly, the closest I think if Lost had come out today, I probably would have been considered a part of that fandom. But otherwise,
Right.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you define being part of a fandom. Did I write about Steven Universe a lot?
That's fair.
Yes. Does that count? I don't know.
I mean, I consider it if you are on social media interacting with multiple fans, doing events like where you meet up with people, or you like do group chats with multiple people about a show and that's all you talk about. That I feel like is being part of the fandom. When I was a lot younger, I was super into a fandom for a soap opera, and that was its own nightmare. And I was 16, 17. I was stupid. um
Right.
and I learned from that, and then I kind of like eased myself into the Teen Wolf fandom, and I was in that one for a very, very long time, but not in the like, I had my small group of fandom friends, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if I was ever full part of the big, huge fandom at large, because most of those people annoyed the shit out of me. Schitt's Creek, I got a little bit further into the fandom, and I felt like I was one of the central people, which is weird because I was a very prolific fanfic writer. So people really like latched on to interacting with me, and that burned me so hard at one point, and then I stopped even caring about being in fandoms. I was on the periphery of the R flag. I was on the periphery of, Interview with the Vampire. I watch these people be idiots, and I'm like, I don't have time for this, but I'm entertained by your guys' stupidity, you
Mhm.
know? So I think I've kind of evolved from being super, super attached to being in conversations constantly about one thing with people to now being like, I can meet people through this show and then not get involved on social media interactions about the show because that I don't have time for that. And Star Wars, I just never even dared. I knew it was a mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess, but I enjoy eating my popcorn and watching everyone else act fools.
But yeah, those are our big
Yeah.
news items for the week.
I don't know. Do we want to talk about the crossover news that happened yesterday or the day before?
Yes. I don't
The
even.
Abbott Elementary. Come
Yeah,
on.
let's talk about this for a second because I don't even know. I am truly at a loss this time.
Like, I
So
understand because they're both from the same city, but like, these are two very vastly different shows.
so yesterday or day before there was a photo published with the cast of Abbott Elementary and It's Always Sunny, teasing a upcoming crossover, and I just don't know what that looks like. Like,
I don't either.
do
Like,
you make Abbott Elementary TV MA? Do you make It's Always Sunny TV PG? Like, what does that look like?
are they gonna randomly run into each other at a sporting event, and that's the essential part of the crossover? Like, what are we doing?
Like, do we mean crossover in the way that like New Girl and Brooklyn Nine crossover? Like, is that what we mean? Where like a character just like jumps into another person's car and that's the crossover?
Or do we mean Disney Channel level crossovers where three shows were jammed together on one episode and it was this big super deal thing and they all interacted and it was a whole, hour long programming? Like, what kind of crossover are we talking about? Which
Right,
two
right. Are we
extremes are we
talking?
talking about?
Yeah, are we talking like Arrowverse level crossover or?
Or to the Chicago shows?
Yeah, yeah. I can't. I just. It's just such a weird.
I just, they announced this and I was like, they announced it and I'm just like, I get it because you're both in Philadelphia, but like, what? But so many of my friends are like excited about it because they love It's Sunny. And I'm like, I get liking both shows, but these don't mix. I don't understand it.
Don't. Who pitched this? Who in the Abbott Elementary writers room was like, I know what we'll do.
Quinto, was it you?
Yeah, yeah. No, I like the joke I saw on Twitter the other day. It was like, are any of the It's Always Sunny people even allowed within 25 feet of a school?
Think about that, but that's hilarious. You make a valid point, person on the internet. Very rare occasions where social media is actually very entertaining, and that is one of them.
Let's move on to the goat. So the goat is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them against each other on a poll on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and TikTok. We are catching up with a couple previous polls here. Firstly, our redemption round pick, um, where we both brought back a previous loss and gave them another shot. Where I brought back Marceline from Adventure Time, and Mads brought back a Servant of Two Masters from Merlin. And I came away with a win on that. So actually, sorry, I told you the soft mic. Um, that actually gives me 3 vetoes and you 2 vetoes. And then our poll from 2 weeks ago, where I nominated The Pain in the Heart from Bones, and Mads, you nominated Indiana Shawn and the kind of crappy Rusty Old Dagger from Psych, which you ended up taking a win on that one. Very contentious poll on Tumblr.
Yes.
We had about 80 votes on that one, and it ended up being about a 55-45 split.
That is pretty contentious.
It's pretty consistent throughout, but you just managed to pull out a little more each time. This week, we have a new goat. The theme, in honor of the Flash's 10-year anniversary of its pilot, we are doing our best superhero. I realized that this could have been better framed as like best comic book show, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We have said it already. So, and so this can cover a lot of ground. All of the Arrowverse stuff, Smallville, all of the animated comic book shows, Gotham, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Marvel Netflixes. There's a great deal to pull from here. Since I lost last week, I am going to go first with pick for the GOAT. We'll see if Mads lets me get away with this. My pick for the GOAT this week is one that is still fairly recent, and that is X-Men 97, Season 1, Episode 5, entitled Remember It. Matt, I would now give you a moment to decide if you want to beat up. You're going to let me do this?
I'm going to let you do it. Because it's recent enough. Whatever. Listen, I think maybe I might have a shot with mine, so.
Okay.
Also, it's a good episode, so.
I didn't imagine that you would let me get away with this. So I'm already caught off guard. But.
Told you, my veto is going to come when you least expect it.
Fair. When X-Men 97 announced that it was coming back, there was some trepidation, also excitement, a lot of anxiousness, and like, what will it do? What can it do? It's removed from the 90s, so removed from the 90s. It's what direction can it take? And Remember It is such a good episode in saying what this show is here to do now. Mm-hmm. It is here to take what was built on in the 90s and take it to this place of not just working on the basis of this superpowered soap opera, but also these highs that a 90s animated show for children could not do. So it is like this wonderful dichotomy in this episode of you have everything happening at the Xavier Mansion, and just giving way to like high soap opera drama as some of them are being interviewed for television by a reporter. And then the other side of this episode that comes together so heartbreakingly and cathartically in the last third or so, as the rest of the team goes to Genosha and tries to celebrate their kind of inaugural first days there, and like establish leadership, and then like as I said, like that last third where it's just unmitigated horror for like a good 10 minutes and doesn't shy away from like detailing that. And like there are moments of like, oh, they're gonna save the kid because that's what this episode is, and it's like, no, that's not what this episode is. And the way that it weaves in like Magneto and Rogue and Gambit until it like all comes together at the end with Gambit dying, and it's just such a testament of like what this show set out to do and wanted to do and accomplished, and it's just devastating. So that is my pick. X-Men 97, Season 1, Episode 5, Remember It.
All right. Well, my pick, I when thinking about this, yesterday and today, I was like, okay, I could either go the Gotham route or I could go the Smallville route because those are the two shows that I really latched onto, right? Um, and I ended up ultimately going with Smallville, season 2, episode 17, Rosetta. I think this is one of the absolute best episodes of the show. Um, I've always felt that show did really good the first 3-4 seasons, and then it kind of started to drop off a bit, and it picked up a little bit again towards the end. But those first few seasons were really magical and really what the essence of Clark Kent is all about. And with season 2, episode 17, we see Clark dealing with the key that he found, kind of affecting him while he's sleeping. He ends up dreaming that he's flying over Smallville, and he ends up in the middle of a road, and Lex shows up and he's like, I don't know how I got here. And then the next time it happens, he's in these caves that Lex is trying to get stuff from, because he does believe that there's something alien going on with these caves, which Lex is kind of right, considering the key that Clark has ends up going into the side of these caves. And when Clark puts them into the side of the caves, he's now downloaded all this understanding of Kryptonian language and history, but he doesn't quite know what to do with it, so to speak. Um, and then he starts having these weird occurrences, like his heat vision goes haywire and creates a Kryptonian symbol in the side of the barn, which means hope. And he tells his parents that means hope. And his parents are like, okay, that's weird. You're not supposed to know what that means. Like, you don't understand Kryptonian. And all this culminates in him getting a letter from a man who says that he has a message from Krypton that would be that he wants to give to Clark. And so Clark goes all the way to New York City to meet with this physicist, who's ironically played by Christopher Reeve, one of the original Supermans. And he gives him this message that Clark is now able to understand because of the key that, went into the side of the cave, right? Meanwhile, we've also got Lex really kind of starting to show his more manipulative side, so to speak. He has this guy investigating the caves that he thinks will be able to read the symbols on the walls of the cave, named Dr. Walden. And Dr. Walden gets a hold of the key and he tries to put it in and it fries his brain, right? But Lex is relentless. But Lex's father also wants him to leave town, right? So it's just a whole mess of everything, but it comes together really well and really kind of sets the stage for Clark realizing that he can choose his own destiny, right? Because the message from Krypton said that he was sent to Krypton to take over the human race. And he gets very upset. And there's this very beautiful scene between him and his father where Clark tells him, I don't want to take over the human race. And his father's like, well, that choice is up to you. Like, you have to make that choice. And you can change what your alien father wanted for you. And I think it's one of the strongest episodes the show has ever done. I personally recommend it to anyone that's like, okay, what's the best Superman storyline you've ever watched? That's one of the best. It's just so well done. So yeah, Smallville season 2, episode 17, Rosetta.
Nice. And you can go vote for both of these on Twitter, TikTok, Tumblr, and Instagram, and you'll have 2 days to vote once it goes live. Fun fact I learned this week: Tumblr has 1 day to vote and 1 week to vote, and there is no in between. So technically, the poll is still running on Tumblr because I could not make it stop.
I wonder if you should start posting them earlier on Tumblr so that you could use the 1 week and it still end on the same day as the other ones.
Maybe. maybe.
You're
But
like,
even
that's a
so,
lot of work.
it's a lot of work, and also I don't understand time like that. And a week is just why? Next week, in honor of Abbott Elementary coming back, our theme is going to be schools. So anything that is explicitly set in a school has to do strongly. Coming out for that, without anything else, let's move on into the main part of our show. So our first show for this week is Dimension 20, The Unsleeping City, Episode 12, Broadway Brawl. Remember how I said there'd be more?
Dude, I literally screamed at my friend about this episode. I was like, Sondheim just drop kicked a pixie, and I'm here for it. Best Stephen Sondheim stuff ever came out of this episode.
What did you think of this battle episode overall?
I love the idea that they have to battle, but it has to be stealth in a way, because it can't let people leave. Like, the people that are watching the play, whatever, can't leave, because that ruins the spell, right? The ritual that she's trying to complete won't be complete if the people leave, right? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea that, like, yes, they're battling, but they have to make it seem believable to being part of a show. And I thought that was so genius and so cool. And it felt like everyone was like making the coolest moves in this battle, right? Like, it was just such a fun technical battle. I really enjoyed myself.
Right, and it's the fun thing that like sets this battle apart from like virtually any other battle we've seen. Of like, it's not just that we have to kill them; we have to kill the enemy and accomplish this thing. We can win and still lose. I think was like the fun thing of this. Like we can still kill
Hmm.
Titania, but if Misty doesn't get her like reincarnation, then like that would still be bad,
Right.
and she wouldn't. You know, I kind of love how KG Brendan is about it. Of like, you probably won't die, and like that probably is true. Like, she probably won't die, but like, it would be like a weird kind of death for her.
Hmm.
We gotta get like all these things like in the right way. Gives it that little bit of flair that the other battles haven't had.
I also really liked that, like, on the first roll, Kugrash/Murph, like, rolled so well that, like, even Brennan was like, wait, what? You rolled what? Like, it was so exciting, and I loved that at the end Ricky was like, all right, game over, we're done. That was such a great roll. Everything's accomplished. Bye. But, like, it was such a good, like, exciting opener for this battle. And I was like, oh, I think this is probably going to be one of my top battles of all time, because, like, it was just so fun from the very beginning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it didn't feel like there was any really lulls in the battle sequences in this battle that, like, made me be like, oh my god, this is dragging. Because sometimes with some of the battle episodes, I have moments where I'm just like, okay, can we just keep moving this along? But this one was just very exciting from start to finish. And I like the addition of Stephen Sondheim being present for this battle. And at first I thought, oh, he's just going to witness this. But no, they involved him in this. And I'm like, that's such a Stephen Sondheim thing to do. Like, I'm literally in my head, I'm like, Stephen Sondheim would.
No, I do think the essential thing about this episode, beyond like the mechanics of it, is Brennan cutting back to both Stephen Sondheim and the theater critic,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically the theater critic, of like Brennan letting us know how well this this play is going and how well this kind of spell is going, just on like the reactions of the theater critic.
Right. It, like, it brings us back to remind us this isn't just a battle. This is literally a play or it's a battle disguised as a play. So like we have to keep that in mind, and like him bringing that critic back reminds us, oh right, that's the visual that the people are seeing.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think like that part is so essential to like making this work and making it feel as dynamic as it is,
Mhm.
and giving it like that really good momentum throughout.
It was so good. And I loved that Kagrash brought out the blind bear, but also the the cockroach. Like it's so great.
It's yeah, no, it's some really great stuff throughout. We've talked about like how great Sophia is as a character, but Sophia is just
Mhm.
a god in the form of a Staten Island woman. Like I don't know how else to put that. Like
Mhm. Right.
just a machine, just absolutely a walking weapon.
Yeah, because there's that moment in the battle where like it's revealed that a certain action doesn't have any effect on her, and Emily's reaction is just like, "Yeah," and we're just like, "Oh my god, this is so great! Like
This
this
is so
is
great.
so amazing." Like you don't think Sophia can get any better, and then just little moments throughout this battle, you're just like, "Oh, she's taking it up another level."
That moment towards the end of the battle, that move she does to
Yeah,
when she takes Titania down and like jumps like 100 feet in the air or something, and just fucking
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
wails on her. It's just like it's insane. It's and what a good Emily Axford move. Just also like Shaban plays this so well throughout the episode of just like the kind of like the Broadway calm charm that she has, but also like
Mhm.
the creeping in of like, oh no, this is really bad, and she like
Yeah.
plays that balance really well throughout the episode.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite moments where she like really displayed that was like towards the end. And she's like, "Oh, can I do this action on the critic to make sure the critic writes good about the play?" Like, I mean, I always have that in my back pocket because like I have to make sure my career continues. Like that very diva behavior was very Broadway, very like Patty LaPone-esque, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
you nailed that. Like you nailed it in a way that's charming and people aren't like, "Oh my god, what the fuck?" You know what I mean? Like it just was so great. And then Brennan's like, "Oh, also like you could create your own like you can create your own what is it? Not Kelvin is the word that's coming to my brain, but that's not the word. But like you can create your own group because you have Tatiana's shoes, you have Tatiana's crown, like,
Mhm.
and Siobhan is just like, well, if I have the crown, then obviously I'm gonna take it. Like, I'm gonna do that.
Right. To kind of go back to what I was saying at the beginning, though, the battle also has like a kind of weird energy of like, yes, if we kill Titania and we go through with this reincarnation, we're kind of it's a kind of Doctor Who thing of like we're saying goodbye to like this version of whoever this is, you know? By the rules being established, we're gonna have someone different. It'll still be Misty, sort of.
Hmm.
It's always that Doctor Who thing of like it's still gonna be the Doctor, but it's not gonna be
But it'll be slightly different.
it's not going to be Matt Smith's incarnation of whoever this guy is, and so like
Hmm.
there's always that like kind of lingering in the background of like even if we get everything we want, we're still not taking a loss, but the status quo is changing after this, and you kind of feel that of like no matter what happens, that's happening. What I think really
Right.
makes that
And I'm very intrigued to see I'm intrigued to see that play out, right?
some other good things in this episode. Esther is a great NPC.
Hmm.
She's so much fun in this episode. Has such a great dynamic, not just with Ricky, but like specifically with like Sophia.
Hmm.
Like the thing of like we have to get drinks. It's like yeah, no, this is very good.
Honestly, the NPCs were probably just as important to the battle this episode as the actual players.
Mm-hmm. And I love that Wally's there.
Oh, Wally.
I did love their moment of like determining who is actually at at this play of like, is Alejandro there? Is Am there? Like
I
that was
love
so much fun.
that Brennan bringing out the Tower of Doom for them
Oh yeah, the box of
for
doom.
her to roll the box of doom. That's what it is. I always forget what it's called. Box of doom out for to make those rolls to determine who's going to be there is just hilarious. I was just like, oh, this is how we're doing it. I mean, it's very D&D.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It's not a you get a ticket. No, let me roll for this ticket.
Wally was great in this episode. I especially love all of all of the Lion King jokes.
Oh my god, yes.
Just that as like a running gag in this episode, and Sondheim just being like, "I did not write that. I did not do that."
I also loved at the end that Sondheim gave a Shakespeare quote. I'm like, yes.
Sondheim, definitely magic, 100% magic. Coming pretty close to the end here, though. We got
Yeah. I think we only have like 4 more episodes.
yeah, 4 more episodes. If we decide to do the final battle as one big episode, then yeah, it's like a 4 hour long finale or something.
Gotcha.
But yeah, pretty much 4 more episodes. More into Dimension 20 next week. Let's move on to our next show, which is Heartstopper, which is come back for its 3rd season on Netflix. So I was only able to get to 1 episode of Heartstopper this week, but Matt, I know that you have already watched Heartstopper, so tell me a bit about it.
Yeah, I saw screeners, so I got to see the whole thing. Honestly, I think it's one of the best. It is. It's hard to say like it's the best season because each season is good in its own merit. I do appreciate that the writing grows with the age of these characters, which I kind of knew going in because I've read the comics. But this season really does justice to some very serious teen issues, and I really appreciated that. I was nervous going in because Olivia Colman, who plays Nick Nelson's mother, was not able to film for this season, and there was some really big Nick and his mom scenes from the comics that were coming up, and I was like, I don't know how they're going to do that without his mom. But they hired Haley Atwell to play his aunt, and she kind of steps in and does the work that his mom would have done in the comics, right? So we still get those very emotional scenes, and she does a really great job of managing them, even as a character that wasn't really a big deal in the comics. She was mentioned, but not really, central. I did love one of the like minor things about this season that I loved was all the times that Nick was like, "Oh no, my mom's off doing this, that, or the other," because Charlie'd be like, "Is your mom home?" And he's like, "No." Jonathan Bailey has a bit of a cameo in the season. Doctor Who has a little cameo because they watched a Doctor Who special in the Christmas episode. And I find just some of the little moments were just really cute. But the big overarching themes of serious topics was handled very well. I really appreciated it, and I felt like the writers did a great job of taking the source material and adjusting it for television in a way that shows these kids are almost adults at this point. They're going to be having conversations about things like sex and body image and stress and anxiety and arguing with parents and things like that, and college, and all those things come to fruition this season. The only big gripe I probably have about it is that the 8 episodes that we get is the entire school year. So it's like they crammed a lot into these 8 episodes. Granted, a chunk of it was kind of done retrospectively in a sense because Charlie wasn't there. He was an inpatient. So it was kind of like that sort of situation, but still it felt very fast paced in a way. But overall, great season. I gave it 5 stars in my review. It was fantastic adaptation of the source material. So,
All right. Well, I look forward to watching more of this.
I really think you'll like Haley Atwell's character.
Okay.
Oh, also they get to curse in this season.
No, you know what? That was a thought I had this week of like with like all the network shows we're watching of like in a just world,
Mm.
someone would just be saying fuck right now. There's some characters where you're like that character should be able to say fuck on network television.
Yeah, so in season 3, Nick and his brother are kind of like going at it, and his brother's being a real dick, and Nick finally just explodes and goes, "Will you just shut the fuck up?" And I'm like, "Good job, Nick. Good job." That's exactly how I would have reacted. Like, good job, you cussed. But yeah, no, there are so many shows that, like, especially with 911, like, we'll talk more about 911 later, but like, there are moments in the episode 911 this week where I was like, Athena would totally be saying, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, right
Yep.
about now.
Speaking of which, let's move on to Joan on the CW. I cannot believe this is on the CW. I understand the CW is doing a lot of acquisitions and like bringing things over from different markets, but this is perhaps the most on CW show in any incarnation that has ever existed of the CW. None more so
Yeah.
than this version of the CW.
Yep.
So, Joan stars Sophie Turner, who again is a character who should be able to wildly curse,
Mm-hmm.
who plays the titular character Joan, who canonically has terrible taste in men and gets wrapped up in bad things because her husband is a piece of shit and gets her
Yep.
caught up with gangsters and has to put her daughter up into foster care and try to make a living. And the overall thesis of the show is Sophie Turner plays a cat burglar, essentially.
Yep.
The problem with this first episode is it is very slow. It's not slow in like
Yeah.
plotting, but it's like Sophie Turner is doing it. This isn't a show where like Sophie Turner isn't doing things. Like Sophie Turner isn't just sitting there and looking sad. She is doing things. She is making moves throughout this episode. It's just it takes so long to get to the end of this episode of I'm gonna start stealing things. And that's the show.
Right.
That, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folks, is the show. That is what we are here to see. We are here to see Sophie Turner look very good in 70s garb and steal things.
Mm-hmm. I think it would have been better if they had did, because the episode starts with her obviously very well off in her thievery, right? That she's able to appear as this very well-to-do woman, right? So I would have preferred if they had done like little snippets of flashback to what happened with her husband, her boyfriend, whatever, and her daughter, because like we didn't need all of that. Like some
No,
of it was completely unnecessary. We could have gotten the Cliff Notes version of her past and then completely been dived into the burglary part of it from the get-go. Like that would have been so much better.
yes, yes. And I think the thing it's really missing is just to dive right in to go, here's Sophie Turner, and she steals things, and she looks really good doing it. Sophie Turner is very good in the show, to be clear. I think she is. The AV Club said that like she's graduated into like the grown up role, and like that's kind of what this is, and it's very good. And like she's having a lot of fun chewing scenery.
Mhm.
Although I watched this on the CW app, and I don't know how they're doing closed captioning now if they're using AI, but it is wholly incapable of translating Sophie Turner in like her like very working class English accent, like indecipherable.
Oh, jeez. I didn't even watch the subtitles.
Yeah, just some of the most indecipherable subtitling I think I've ever seen on a TV show. It is a much thicker accent than I'm used to Sophie Turner having.
Mhm.
Like it's a much more Cockney accent than Sansa Stark.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's very good, and she is just kind of having a blast with it. There's a lot of like tragedy throughout of like her having to like give her daughter up for foster care. That's like, oh, this is very sad, but also I think I do agree with you. More would have been less in this case, or less would have been more in this case. Of like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to see this so explicitly. I don't need like you can kind of
Right.
just like give the snippets, give like the little bit, give like the broad strokes, and like I think we would have gotten
Right, exactly. Like, if we could have started with her at the jewelry store and like moved from there, like that would have been fine. And then she could have in dialogue revealed the stuff about her boyfriend or her daughter. Like we don't need it to
it.
be shown to us. Like you could have just told us.
Or you could have shown it to us like in like kind of briefer ways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I think you're watching the entire episode of like, okay, when is she gonna? When do we get into the actual
When's
show?
she gonna start stealing things?
Yeah, yeah. It's a very like Breaking Bad kind of thing of like, okay, when's Walter White gonna actually start doing the Heisenberg thing? And like that's kind of the same thing going on here of like, cool, cool. I want to see Sophie Turner doing bad things. Let's really get into it. So that does end up making like this first episode a little lesser, a little. It's very weirdly piloty for a show that is this kind of laborious. I think in any other case we're like, oh, it's very much a pilot. You're like, okay, they're setting up, like the framework and the like the kind of like method of each episode and how it's gonna look and how it's gonna feel. And here it's just no, we have to take so long to just get to the premise. So I am trustful that like the rest of the show like moves a little better once we get actually into cat burglary of it all. Like when we get into like Sophie Turner's doing Selena Kyle, I think it'll work a lot better. We will hang in there and report back. Let's move on to our next show, which is Murder in a Small Town. This does not work at all.
Yeah, I was very bored.
Yeah, so the first two episodes are out. This is an ABC show, I believe. No, it's a Fox show. And this stars, for the life of me, I don't know who the Rossif Sutherland, who I assume is of proper Sutherland.
It's Donald Sutherland's son.
Yeah, Donald Sutherland's son.
It's Donald Sutherland's son. That's why the first episode had a in memory of Donald Sutherland or whatever after it.
Oh, okay. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I looked it up and they said that Donald Sutherland was involved in the project prior to his death and that his son was the main role. And I was like, oh, that's his son. Okay.
A deeply lesser Sutherland.
Yeah. Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
What's her name from Smallville?
Yeah, Sutherland stars with the new chief of police at this small coastal, like northern coastal town, and Kristen Krug stars as essentially his love interest, who is the local librarian. And a lot of the show, like, there's two spheres of the show. The first is his character, Carl Alberg, solves crimes each episode. And then the other one is like a weird rom com between him and Kristen Krug. And the crime part of it is fine. The rom com part of this doesn't work at all. Because I want to be clear. Kristen Krug is a very, I think, engaging actress. She is doing 95% of the heavy lifting. He has no chemistry with her. She's giving most of that energy. He is a cardboard box.
Yeah. I just don't care because he's literally as flat as a piece of paper. Like, there is nothing exciting about him.
It is an intensely minimalist performance.
Yeah.
And, like, to be fair, like, Keith Sutherland also had, like, a very minimalist performance. Like, when you go and look, like, at, like, 24 or Designated Survivor, like, most of the time, when it isn't, like, in action mode. Especially, like, 24, when it isn't in action mode. and it's
Mm-hmm.
just Kiefer Sutherland acting against someone else. It's very subdued, but it's never flat. You know, it's
Right.
always compelling. And him, it's just nothing. He is giving Kristen Crook nothing to work off of. The first episode does like the only interesting thing in its entire run of like Kristen Crook doesn't tell him about doesn't tell him about James Cromwell. It's like, oh, that's moderately intriguing, and then
Mm-hmm.
nothing does nothing with that.
Yep.
It's interesting because it's like, oh, she's doing like this thing of kindness that will like affect her own life and this relationship with this guy that she's kind of building. Again, it's just nothing. It's just it's a sandwich with nothing in it.
Right.
It doesn't really do anything. It's not, and even like the oh, it's a small town and there's secrets in the small town. It's like, yeah, I know. I've watched television before.
But also, like, these secrets aren't even that interesting. It's like, you've got to make it juicier if you're going to make the show be centered around the fact that this guy has moved to this town and he thinks it's going to be a regular old humdrum detective type job. And then it's like, no, he finds out there are secrets in this town. And it's just like, but these are normal, everyday people don't want to talk about things. These aren't like big, revealing, shocking secrets. Like, these are boring.
No, it's just crime of the week stuff. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And apparently it's based off of a book series, and I'm like, oh, please tell me these books are more interesting.
well, like it feels so like kind of like European in a certain way, especially the main character being called Carl Alberg. It's like Jesus Christ, you know, it feels like it was drawn from
Hmm.
like a Swedish crime show that like moved to something good. It's like, oh yeah, it's just it's not doing anything. And like to compare it to a show that's much better than this, like Twin Peaks of like a show you come in and it's like, oh, there's weird things happening in this small town. It's like, okay, I get the vibe. I don't get the vibe here.
So I just Googled it. The book series is set in British Columbia, Canada.
You gotta be fucking kidding me here. God, this is a Vancouver show though. Between like Kristen Crook and Aaron Douglas and the guy in the second episode, Draw Joseph, who was on the 100, played Miller on the 100. It's like, oh yeah, this is Vancouver. This is a Vancouver show. All right. Yeah, I think this is one. This isn't even like one of the worst fall shows. It's just one of the more boring ones. Let's move on to our next show. Found season 2, episode 1, Missing Wild Bait. This is a show we talked about a little bit last year and fell off.
Hmm.
And we're checking back in with its second season. Um, so, how are we feeling about this?
Honestly, I kind of like the beginning of this season better than how we left things at the end of last season because I don't know, there's something about everyone being very mad at Gabby that makes it much more interesting and compelling. I don't I don't know, I'm very more intrigued. I also want to know obviously what happened to Lacey. Like, I'm like, where's Lacey? But I'm intrigued because I like Gabby, but I don't love Gabby. And so, like, seeing other people mad at her for the fact that, I don't know, she had a man kidnapped and held in her basement for like a long ass time. Like, her love interest being very put off by the fact that he almost put his job on the line for her to find out that she's done this horrendous crime. And he's just like, yeah, I'm out. Bye.
Yeah, I thought
Um,
I thought that I had while I was watching it that I think that the show's big hook of Gabby has had her kidnapper locked away in her basement for like 9 months is better as a kind of a vague idea, and if you try to like bring it to like its natural conclusion or bring it into the light of like reality, then I think it doesn't work as well. Which is like what
mm,
this premiere has to do is like actually deal with like the implications and the actual reality of that. It's like this doesn't work as well. It's it is stretching the
Mhm.
um, constraints of this idea. It was kind of like the you get away with this because of like the not the darkness, but like the shadows of it.
Mhm.
Like if you're just playing in the shadows, then it's an idea that works. When you like bring it into the light, I don't know, man. Then it kind of falls apart.
That's fair. I will say I found it very interesting that Lacey's mom didn't wasn't upset with Gabby about what she had done with regards to Sir. And I was like, that's intriguing. But then you have to think about they were all kind of trauma bonded by this thing that happened to her daughter and Gabby together. So of course this mom's gonna be like, well, you kidnapped the man that did this to you. Of course that's totally fine. It's a weird dynamic. But I also, in the terms of psychotic shipping, I ship Zeke and Dan, or Dan, I forget his name. Is it Dan or Don?
I think it's Dawn.
Whatever. I ship the two of them together so much, especially after this episode. Psychotic will never actually happen, but hey.
Yeah. No, I can feel that. Yeah. So, I think it's mainly fine. I think a lot of I can't decide if it's the writing or the performances that aren't really clicking for me in this episode.
Mm,
I think it's the performances. I think like a lot of like where a lot of the where a lot of the performers are at and like trying to work at like just don't feel very well calibrated for me. I can buy like people
right.
being like frustrated and pissed off, but like a lot of the performances just feel not dialed in enough for me.
That's fair.
Hopefully, it can figure itself out again. I was happy that Lacey didn't actually die because if Lacey had died, I probably would have
Yes.
thrown a fit.
Oh, totally. Like, I'm glad that she wasn't actually dead. But she is I listen, I'm rooting for her because I have a feeling that she is going to fuck him up. I liked this episode better than how I felt the end of last season, but again, like kind of to what you said, like I'm still not like convinced I love this show. It's fine. I like it. I enjoy it. Whatever. I think I'm kind of just tuned in at this point because I like some of the side characters, not necessarily Gabby.
Well, let's move on to our next show. Dr. Odyssey, Season 1, Episode 2, entitled Singles Week. And the main thing I have here is Thruple or I Riot. Um, like, look, if you're going to have, like, the one woman on the show be with a guy, let's go fucking full board. All three of them, Thruple. Let's have the strength of our convictions here. Otherwise, don't even bother.
The only thing I really remember about this episode was Court Overstreet. He showed up and I was just like, "Oh, hello, the guy from Glee." Um and then every time he was on screen I was just like, that's Court Overstreet, but like I didn't register really any of the storyline. And I think that's what I'm kind of where I'm falling on how I feel about this show is that I'm like, there's not a whole lot to it that I really care about. There was one scene that I laughed hysterically for a good 2 minutes because I had to pause the episode and then like laugh for a good 2 minutes because I thought it was so ridiculously stupid. But Joshua Jackson is standing there watching them do the work on someone. I forget who it was. And he's got his scrubs on, he's got his hands on his stethoscope, and he smiles at the camera and goes, man, we're turning into quite a team, huh? And it's just like, it was so stupid because I was like, sir, you're not doing anything. They're doing all the work. What do you mean a team? Like, you're not doing anything. And I was like, oh, you know what? I bet you Joshua Jackson got signed on just to stand there and look pretty, and that would be plenty to keep people engaged. Because I was like, Joshua Jackson, what are you doing? This dialogue is terrible.
You know what? There is one line in this episode. I can't remember which character says it to him, but like refers to him as a handsome young man, and I'm like, Joshua Jackson looks great, but to be fair, he is in like
Mm-hmm.
his mid 40s. There are a lot of things that you can call Joshua Jackson, but young isn't necessarily the thing anymore.
His hair is gray. Like, what do you mean young?
Dawson's Creek was like 25 years ago. Like,
I get why people are raving about this show, and I know it's not the plot or the dialogue, unless your idea of plot is just Joshua Jackson. That is why people are raving about it. It's because it's Joshua Jackson. They don't care if he says anything as long as he's on screen, looking pretty and smiling for the camera. Nobody cares. But I do, because that stuff doesn't affect me. I'm like, I don't care who this actor is. If it's a terrible show, it's a terrible show.
listen, I love this show. I think it's very fun. I think it's super enjoyable.
I mean, listen, I laugh, but it's not definitely not something I'm going to be like, "Oh, I love this show." I will gladly listen to you talk about it for however many weeks we talk about it.
I mean, I think the show most strongly comes down to the performances of like Joshua Jackson and Philip Sue and various guests. I did say this. Shania Twain is great. I do
Mhm.
think that they miscast her character because the writing of her is someone who is noticeably a grandmother, and Shania Twain is not.
No, she is not.
I know intellectually Shania Twain is not young, but she perpetually looks like she is 35. So that is not the vibe of this character. I don't think. I I don't believe that is what they were going for. But I also don't really care because Shania Twain is very fun to have on TV, and she's just kind of a very
Yeah.
engaging presence. I really enjoy that. Yeah, I think most of the show is just going to come down to I have a lot of fun with these cases and with these characters. Which does bring us to our next show, Rescue High Surf, which, Matt, at your urging, I did watch all 3 episodes this week.
Oh, good. I'm proud of you.
And I will say, I think that you are higher on this show than I am. I think
Yeah.
it's very fine. I don't think that the chemistry of the main two are as strong as you seem to think it is. Perfectly serviceable, but very okay. I'm not like crazy about it or anything. And there's nothing in these episodes I'm like, oh, this is very good. I'm just yeah, yeah, we're doing
I'm
good work.
very interested in the young. I'm very interested in the young ones, the new guys, like especially like this week's episode, where the girl like makes a very big blunder of forgetting her walkie when she goes to like help someone. I think that dynamic of them like not quite liking each other is going to cause some not so great rescue moments because they're going to be like, in conflict with each other, but yeah, I mean, I'm greatly enjoying it. I like the actors, I like the characters. I like the dynamic between the two, older main ones, but it's understandable if other people don't feel the same way.
Yeah, yeah. No, like I've seen worse chemistry. This is just very serviceable, stuff. I think a lot of this is very standard kind of emergency drama kind of show. None of the characters really grab me in a strong way. I mean, maybe the strongest one is the lead woman M, but otherwise, like
Yes.
I could very much take or leave anyone here.
It's funny because like that actress played a character on 911 for like a season, and I did not like her at all. And so I thought, oh, I'm not gonna like this actress in anything, because I hadn't really seen her in anything prior to that. And now I've seen her on this, and I'm like, no, the actress is great. That character was just terrible. Um, but yeah, I really like M. M's great.
and I think the problem I have with her and Will is their relationship is not fleshly drawn enough. You know, I need more of whatever that was. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna say these two people still have chemistry and still like work well together. Okay, cool. Why did they not work well together? So I need like
That's valid.
I don't think
That's
there's
fair.
enough there.
Yeah. Or maybe, and I hadn't really like thought about that, but like now that you say that, I'm like, I'm wondering if maybe like the writers were thinking, oh, we'll reveal that in a couple episodes. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to reveal it right away. But to your point, don't we kind of need that to fully immerse ourselves?
They're gonna see a little more contextualization on that.
I just want Will's like current woman to show up one day and just be like obnoxiously annoying, because like that's fun dynamic that I like. You know what I mean? Like I want her to come show up to work and like they be in a somewhat like familiar moment and she get all bent out of shape about it. Like I need that because he's already established that that's why he's wanting to switch to being a firefighter. It's not because he wants to be a firefighter, it's because she wants him to do a job that doesn't involve his ex.
In that case, it seems like it would be much easier to just transfer.
Right. Go to a different station on the island. Like, do you have to be at that one?
Although, okay, the one thing I will say about this show that I do kind of enjoy is you know those movies that feel like they were produced by like a tourism board.
Yes.
This is like an anti-tourism board show.
Yeah.
This is like, do not fucking come here.
It really does. And I really appreciate that because the people that are born and raised in Hawaii are like, we don't like the tourism. We understand it's needed for some of our economy, but we hate it. So, like, I love that this show has kind of latched onto that vibe. And I like that.
Don't come to Hawaii. Don't go in the
So,
ocean.
like, let us show you all the worst things that could happen to you on vacation here.
Yes, yes. In that regard, I have changed my mind of like, no. This is the perfect Drew Koenig stay out of the ocean bit. Because
Yes.
this show also believes you should stay out of the ocean.
This week's episode with the Ukrainian and his, I guess, girlfriend, wife, whatever. Oh my
Yeah.
god, was hilarious. Like I was just like, these two fucking idiots don't really know how to swim and they're going out in the ocean. Like, are you guys serious right now? Like what?
Stay out of the ocean, everyone. Let's move on to our next show. 911, Season 8, Episode 2, When the Boeing Gets Tough. This is no B NATO. I understand we're in a B NATO arc currently, but this is no proper B NATO.
I wonder if we're even gonna see the bees again.
How dare you give me bees and not show me? What a waste of a B NATO. Yeah, I think I wanted a little more. I don't know what more I want from a play and emergency episode, but I need a little more. It doesn't have enough sauce. I think that's what it is for me. Just needs a little more something. I don't know. I think the problem I have with the episode is I at no point really feel like Athena is in danger. And I'm not saying that I need or want Athena to die,
Mm-hmm.
but she is in a plane set to crash. And I need to feel more of that,
Yes.
more of the danger inherent of that, and not Athena Grant is a superhero who can fly a plane.
This
Which is
ends up
kind of the
being a
vibe.
big problem that I have with this show. They do this consistently where the urgency just isn't really there because we're at the point of 8 seasons in, no one has people have gotten hurt, but like no one has really like died or anything like that. And it's like there have been situations where someone should have died and they just didn't. This is one of those situations. Do I want Athena to die? No, because Angela Bassett is carrying this goddamn show on her shoulders. But
Mhm.
it is also very highly unlikely that she would single handedly be able to make sure that all the injuries got dealt with, but also fly the plane.
And also, I think like a lot of a lot of like the cases on the airplane just feel very pat to me. We solved it, we got it,
Hmm.
and it's like, no, I need this to be a little more difficult. I need this to, like, and maybe it's because there were so many of them that like they didn't have time to
Yeah,
commit to like really digging into like any one of those cases and make them, raising the stakes on them.
right.
But like one of the girls is like, oh, you cut her leg open, and now her leg is just open, and that's fine. I don't know how medicine works, but that would seem to me to be a
Like,
problem.
they, towards the end of the episode, they showed her, it seemed to be like somewhat either squatting up or like standing up, because she was like on level with her teammates that were sitting in their seats, and it's like, girl, no, you should still be on the ground
Yeah,
laying down because your leg is cut open. Like, what are you doing?
no, no. I'm just gonna say no to that.
Also, we should not be doing this kind of medical procedures on a plane with a guy from prison. Like, what?
No, you probably shouldn't be doing this on a plane at all. Honestly,
Well, but I'm saying, like, there's no way someone being instructed over the phone on how to do something as intricate as cutting open someone's leg like that is going to be done the right way without any kind of problems or complications.
right.
It's so unbelievable. It's just,
Yeah, and that's kind of like across the board with like everyone, or like, oh, everyone is very good.
yeah.
We know exactly what they're looking for, and oh, that person just happens to have it. And it's like, okay, I understand this is television, but you can only have so many conveniences and machinations.
Oh, come on, Drew. Don't you know? Being geriatric means you have the solution to every problem.
Yeah,
I will say that Asian couple was pretty epic. Like, they were like, that girl was like, "Oh my god, you're saving the day," and they're like, "That's because we're geriatric, hon."
I think that's how geriatric works.
I still 8 seasons in, I still deal with this show because some of the dialogue is so iconic. And I also just really love Angela Bassett and Peter Krause. And so, like, getting to have them continue to be on this ridiculous show that actors of their caliber should not be on,
Mm,
um gives me so much joy.
yeah, no. I will say the thing I enjoyed the most about this episode is everything with Peter Krause, from like him watching the news report on, of just, well, this might as well fucking happen.
I love that Buck comes up and he's like, and Buck's like, "She's flying the plane." He goes, "Of course she is." Because for you, who's not really seen all the show, he knows this woman has been his wife since season 2, basically. He's well aware of Athena's behavior. He knows that that bitch can't just leave things alone. You know, in his head, he's like, "Oh, I'm so done with her. Like, we are having a major, major relationship conversation after this." But also, my favorite part was they're stealing the fire truck, which father and son stealing the fire truck, absolutely, we're here for it. But the the actor guy that just jumps into the truck like he's an actual firefighter and says his quote unquote catchphrase, and and Bobby's just like, "Yeah, okay."
Fine, whatever.
He goes, "Okay, this is happening." But yeah, I will say Twitter was very fun, for memes and things about this episode, and one of them was, "Ever since Step Up, I've been begging for Ryan Guzman to dance again, and this little miniature dance party healed my soul." I was like, "Wait, white boy dancing?" Because that was total white boy dancing.
Let's move on to our next show. Lord of the Rings Power, season 2, episode 8, Shadow and Flame. This was the season finale, and I'm just going to talk about this really briefly because Matt, you have not watched it. I think this is a terrific end to a really stellar season. I really enjoy the way that a lot of things are coming to a head. You have a battle at Region, and then you have some very interesting things happening at Casa Doom. I'm not gonna spoil, but some some very fun lore things happening at Casa Doom. And then Numenor is gonna Numenor. I didn't think that I would be actively rooting for Numenor to fall into the sea. But this is where we are now, I guess. Because those people just suck. But yeah, a lot of great stuff there. Finally brought back Isildur for the 10 minutes in this last episode because I think someone went, "Oh right, we haven't seen him all season, or for most of the season." Which actually, that was a good thing that I'm glad that Rings of Power knows how to do, which is just we can just put this character aside for a few episodes, and we don't have to check in on him all the time. So I actually am glad that they did that, and really great final confrontation between Galadriel and Hallbrand slash
Mm.
Anatar slash Hot Sauron who fucks. Yeah, really,
Slash
really good.
anything he's going by this week.
Yeah, exactly. Emmy consideration for Charlie Vickers and Charles Edwards, just because they did such good work this season as Anatar and Celebrimbor. I am unironically excited for the third season.
Nice.
It probably won't be 2 years this time. It'll probably be like a year and a half, but whatever. But yeah, I enjoy the show so much. I am glad that we finally got around to the point of oh no, Rings of Power is actually good collectively as a culture, which I have been saying since the first season. Glad everyone's caught up to me. Also, one final thing, they finally said who the stranger's name is, and I laughed for a good 5 minutes.
Oh.
It won't be hard for you to guess.
You should just tell me.
I mean, it's Gandalf. We all knew it was Gandalf.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, am I going to expect exactly what I think I'm gonna hear?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's Gandalf, and it happens through
The
the
worst kept
funniest.
secret.
Yeah, it happens through the funniest course of events of the other not Hobbit people calling him Grand Elf, and then he's just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
they're gonna call me Gandalf now." Just, I love this show so much. It's so stupid sometimes. It's great 85% of the time, but sometimes it's so unspeakably stupid. Let's move on to our last show of the week. Agatha All Along, Season 1, Episode 4. If I can't reach you, let my song teach you.
God, this was a good episode.
This is such a good episode. I said this on Serialized. Somehow the show is getting gayer, and I don't know how, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's managing that.
The minute Aubrey Plaza showed back up, I was like, "Oh, Drew is gonna be so happy."
I'm like, yes.
And she's so iconically gay. Like, there's no other way to explain her behavior. Like,
No,
she's
no.
just gay.
The line "She is my scar" is gonna go down as an all-time gay just utterance. It's truly impressive.
And then when they walked off together, ugh. And they almost kissed. I was like, God damn it, we almost had it.
Here's the thing I love about "She Is My Scar" is the amount that Rio has to force that confession from herself. This is not what they're talking about. But Rio's let me give you some gay lore. It's just outstanding. Yeah, it's terrific. And the costuming in this episode is out of this world. It's
also,
so
I just
good.
love the rock rendition of Down the Witch's Road. So good.
Oh yeah. I love that we have Patti LuPone on the show, and we're just having her be background, just basically doing cowbell in the background.
They probably approached her and she was like, "You said witches, I'm in. I don't care what my role is, just put me in." And she didn't complain. about being in the background.
No,
Like, you
no.
know, she's like, oh, absolutely. I'm just happy to be here. Just so.
This episode took what was like kind of gay to we are stratosphere out of this world.
You can't say we're anything else gay.
Exactly. Absolutely. That almost kiss is just outstanding.
Ugh.
But between that she's my scar and then that almost kiss, I was like, oh, we're really going for it here, aren't we? We're really.
I didn't think you would survive. I truly didn't think you'd survive. I thought I would get notice that you had passed away. So I am very grateful that you didn't die. But yeah, I knew that was going to be so intense for you.
I was just watching it. I was like, there's no fucking way we're actually doing this.
Oh, but they are.
But yeah, like, I love the levels to it too. Of like, Agatha thinking that like teen is like this gift that Rio is giving to her. I'm like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love all that. And like we've all just decided that Rio is death or an agent of death,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's a lot of like what is happening here. Yeah, it's just so good. Like Aubrey Plaza is so good to this role.
Yeah, she's so good.
Like we talk a lot about like actors who like aren't calibrated to the role they're playing. Aubrey Plaza immediately is just in it.
Yeah. She's like, oh, you want this to be explicitly gay or subtly gay? No, I'm going to make it explicitly
I'm
gay.
gonna make it
I'm going to go balls to the walls with this
subtext for
character.
cowards.
Yeah, exactly. And I keep going back to that interview where she said it's gonna be gayer than you ever expect. And I'm like, oh, that means you made it gayer than you expected.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes.
She knows her audience. She knows that you know, we adore her being gay. The gayer the better.
Mm-hmm. No, I saw somebody on Twitter post a screenshot of AO3, and it's like it's already up to 150 fan fiction. It's like, what are you all doing? It's been like 2 days. It's already up to 150. It was like at 100 yesterday. You freaks. Well, that is it for this week. Next week, Abbott Elementary will be coming back, so we will be talking about that. Until then, Mads, where can we follow you online?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DorothyNYC89 and on Tumblr at MadsWorld15.
Nice. And you can follow me on Twitter at TheDrewKoenig and at DrewKoenig everywhere else. You can find the podcast at our Linktree at linktree.com/NoneOtherTV podcast. And that'll have all of our social media accounts plus our Discord, where you can join and talk to us about TV throughout the week. You can find previous episodes of the podcast on Apple and Spotify, along with whatever other podcatching device you use, and our full podcast directory at libsyn.com/NoneOtherTV podcast. Please review and subscribe. You can email us at noneothertvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, or questions you'd like to send our way. And as we close out, please remember, do not go in the ocean. None of your business.